Out there, on a planet where the air burns, the storms scream, and the ground itself shakes with fury, a species not only survived, they thrived. They laughed in the face of disaster, danced through chaos, and dared to reach for the stars. This is the story of humans, the unpredictable force that turned a Deathworld into a cradle of ambition. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and show a thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's dive into this truly extraordinary story. The chamber was as quiet as the vacuum between stars. Towering crystal walls curved high above, catching glimmers of starlight and reflecting them like tiny galaxies dancing overhead. Delegates from thousands of species filled every seat in the hall of stars, their faces lit by the soft blue glow of the central platform. This place, normally filled with voices of diplomacy and disagreement, was now hushed. All eyes were fixed on a single figure, a young archivist named Malric. He stood alone on the floating platform in the center of the chamber. His uniform, far too formal for his liking, felt tight at the neck. In one hand, he clutched a small data pad, and in the other, nothing but a flicker of courage. He was not a warrior, not a scientist, not even a diplomat. He was just someone who loved patterns, languages, and forgotten signals drifting across space. Yet somehow, he had become the one chosen to deliver a message that might change everything. "Honored Council," Malric began, his voice soft but steady. "I present findings on a newly reviewed planet, Verdun 3, also known as Earth by its native species." A low ripple of amusement traveled through the hall. Earth had been mentioned before, always as a curiosity. The kind of place you looked at from a safe distance like a storm from a window. Malric didn't smile. He tapped his data pad, and a slow rotating image of Earth appeared above him, a beautiful blue sphere wrapped in swirling white clouds and shadows of green and brown. "Earth is classified as a Class X hazard world," he continued. "The environmental conditions are extreme. Gravity at nearly 10 meters per second squared. Weather patterns include massive windstorms, intense heat waves, and freezing cold zones. Volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and electrical storms are common occurrences." This time, laughter broke out openly. Some delegates made whistling sounds of disbelief. Others shook their heads. One even muttered something about fiction made flesh. Malric ignored them. "The atmosphere is filled with oxygen, a highly reactive and corrosive gas. Oceans cover most of the surface and are filled with aggressive aquatic life. Land regions are inhabited by numerous predatory species. And yet..." He paused, waiting for the room to quiet. "A sentient species not only survives there, they flourish." The laughter stopped. "Flourish?" asked a delegate near the edge of the chamber. Malric nodded. "They've built massive cities in earthquake zones. They live in areas known for tornadoes. They have chosen to settle near active volcanoes. They don't just endure these dangers, they study them. Some even chase storms for the sake of learning, and they do these things willingly." He shifted the projection above him. Now the image showed humans running across mountains, swimming through open seas, climbing frozen cliffs. They climb mountains that no one needs to climb. They swim across oceans without needing to. They run for miles in desert heat, just to test their strength. These activities are not for survival. They are for recreation. The delegates watched in silence, their expressions slowly changing from amusement to confusion. Malric continued. "In the last 5 decades, they've made contact with particles faster than light in theory. They've already split the atom. They have satellites, robotic explorers on neighboring planets, and even small experimental habitats on their moon and nearby worlds. They are progressing at a rate that surpasses our early stages, on a world that should have killed them long before they built fire." One of the elder counselors finally spoke. "You expect us to believe that this species, born of such chaos, is fit to join us?" "I'm not here to argue fitness," Malric replied. "I'm here to present facts." Another image appeared, this time of Earth at night. The dark side of the planet sparkled with lights, cities, towns, human life. There are over 8 billion of them, and they are running out of space. A long, heavy silence fell. The implications were clear. A species that could survive a Class X world could easily colonize many of the galaxy's more dangerous planets, places others had long avoided or failed to terraform. If humans found those planets inviting, what then? There is more, Malric said quietly. An envoy has arrived, a representative of Earth. He did not come in one of our crafts. He flew here alone, in what they call a civilian shuttle. He requested to speak with the Council. The chamber stirred once again. An uninvited envoy? A single traveler? Madness. He made only one stop, Malric added, to get something, called, coffee. The doors at the far end of the chamber hissed open. A tall, thin figure entered. He was dressed simply, a dark suit, a white shirt, a tie. In one hand, he held a small case. He walked calmly to the center of the chamber, smiled at the gathered beings, and bowed. "My name is Marcus," he said. "Ambassador of Earth. It's an honor to be here." He said it with the ease of someone introducing himself at a dinner party. And in that moment, every creature in the Hall of Stars saw what Malric had warned them of. The man from Earth was not armed, not armored. But in his eyes was the calm certainty of someone who had survived fire, ice, storm, and darkness, and come out stronger. The humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The ship descended slowly, its smooth silver surface reflecting the sunlight as it glided toward the blue and green world below. From inside, Lyra watched the planet grow larger, her hands tightly gripping the edge of her seat. She was the youngest xenodiplomat in her division, and this was her first off-world contact mission. It should have been a simple task: observe, document, report. But nothing about Earth had been simple since the first report arrived at the Stellar Assembly. Now she was being sent down to meet the creatures who had turned the entire council upside down. Beside her sat 3 other members of the diplomatic team. They were all seasoned officials, calm and well-trained, but even they looked tense as the shuttle approached the landing coordinates. Earth was a Class X hazard world after all, the kind of place most species avoided entirely. And yet humans not only lived here, they called it home. Lyra glanced out the window and blinked, in confusion. The landing zone didn't look like a military base or a security checkpoint. It looked like a picnic area. There was a table with a checkered cloth, several folding chairs, and what appeared to be drinks set out under a small tent. A few parked vehicles sat nearby, and a handful of humans stood waiting, talking among themselves and occasionally laughing. The shuttle landed with a soft thud. As the engines powered down, the team went through one final systems check. Their suits were fully sealed. The oxygen-rich atmosphere of Earth could be dangerous. Lyra's heart pounded as the door opened and a gentle breeze swept in. It smelled like grass, earth, and something warm, maybe food. A man stepped forward from the group, smiling brightly. He was tall, with short brown hair and kind eyes. He wore no armor, no weapon, just a light jacket and what humans called jeans. "Welcome to Earth," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Enzo, liaison officer for this meeting. We're glad you're here." Lyra hesitated. The translator confirmed the words, and her training told her to respond. She bowed slightly, her suit hissing softly. "Thank you, Enzo. I am Lyra, representative of the Stellar Assembly. We come in peace." Enzo laughed. "So do we. Come, we've got refreshments, some customized for your biology. Our scientists worked hard on it. Don't worry, no hot sauce this time." The team followed him carefully, still suspicious. Everything felt too casual. No guards, no scanners, no checkpoints, just smiling people and a welcome party. Enzo poured drinks into specially designed cups for their suits. It smelled odd but harmless. The team took cautious sips and found it surprisingly pleasant. Lyra looked around. The trees swayed gently in the wind. Birds sang. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Nothing about this place matched the danger in the reports. But then, she noticed something strange. The humans were barefoot. They stood on uneven ground with no visible discomfort, moving with ease in the heavy gravity. She looked down at her own boots, weighted and reinforced. How could they be so unaffected? Enzo noticed her gaze. It's not so bad once you get used to it, he said. Our bodies adapted over time. We build muscle and balance from a young age. You should see our kids on playgrounds, climbing things that would terrify most species. He wasn't joking. A short drive later, the team arrived at a park. There, human children ran, jumped, climbed, and laughed as they played. One girl hung upside down from a metal bar, swinging back and forth with nothing but her legs keeping her in place. The diplomatic team watched in horror. Don't worry, Enzo said, grinning. Kids bounce. At each stop, the humans revealed more. A weather station where scientists calmly tracked approaching storms. Storms large enough to devastate cities. A construction site where workers balanced on steel beams hundreds of feet above the ground, with nothing but thin ropes. A local market where people casually handled food spiced with compounds that their scanners flagged as mild toxins. To the team, these things were shocking. To the humans, they were just daily life. Back at their shuttle, Lyra sat in stunned silence. Enzo had just shown them blueprints for an experimental spacecraft. It used concepts from faster-than-light travel that her own species had barely begun to test. And yet, the humans had come up with them using basic materials and decades-old computers. They had research stations on their moon. Small teams had already landed on the red world they called Mars. They were preparing for colonization. But Mars is lifeless, she had said, unable to hide her disbelief. Enzo shrugged. That's just a detail. We'll figure it out. It's what we do. The shuttle door closed with a soft click. The team was preparing to report their findings to the Stellar Assembly. Lyra turned to look out the window one last time. On the field, a group of humans had started jogging as clouds rolled in. Rain was beginning to fall, and they laughed as they picked up their pace, running straight into the storm. Lyra leaned back in her seat and took a deep breath. Everything she thought she knew about danger, survival, and strength had been turned upside down. These weren't reckless creatures, they were something else entirely. Persistent, curious, impossibly resilient. And as the engine started to hum, she whispered to herself, they're not just living here. They've made it theirs, and now they're coming for the stars. High Counselor Myros stood at the center of the council chamber, his voice echoing across the grand dome like a sharp wind through a canyon. We are not ready for them, he said, his tone firm, almost angry. Humans are reckless, unpredictable, and dangerously clever. Letting them into the Stellar Assembly is not just risky, it is foolish. Around him, representatives from hundreds of species murmured in agreement, concern flickering in their eyes. Fear, after all, had always been easier to grasp than understanding. The chamber was full again, every seat occupied, ever since the first contact report had come back from Earth. No delegate had dared miss a session. The information shared by the Xeno-diplomatic team had shaken the council to its core. Videos of humans climbing ice-covered mountains, swimming in stormy seas, running into dangerous storms for data, all while smiling, had spread through the assembly faster than a solar flare. But now it wasn't reports or rumors. Now the humans were here. Tessa, Earth's first appointed ambassador to the Stellar Assembly, stepped quietly into the chamber. She did not wear battle armor or flashy robes. She wore a simple dark suit, held a small tablet in one hand, and smiled politely as she approached the center of the room. Unlike the towering alien diplomats around her, she looked almost delicate. But there was something steady in her posture, something grounded. She didn't seem intimidated. Ambassador Tessa, said Myros coldly. Do you understand the concern you have caused? Tessa nodded. Yes, Counselor, I do. And still, your species seeks membership among us? We do not seek to conquer, she replied. We seek to connect. We're explorers. We're learners. And yes, we are survivors. Myros paced a few steps, his wings twitching in frustration. You have come from a Deathworld, one of the most dangerous environments known to us. You build homes near volcanoes. You celebrate storms. You engage in activities that seem to have no purpose but pain. Tessa chuckled softly. Pain teaches, struggle builds strength. We didn't choose Earth's challenges, we adapted to them. And now those challenges have made us strong enough to reach out to others. She tapped her tablet. Above her, a projection lit up, showing images from human history. A massive meteor, long before their civilization. Then wars, plagues, disasters. Each time, destruction. And each time, rebuilding. She turned slowly, speaking to the entire chamber. Every time we've fallen, we've stood back up. Often scarred, sometimes broken, but always learning. Always moving forward. And now, we've reached the stars. Not because Earth made it easy, but because it never did. Some of the counselors looked moved. Others remained stiff and skeptical. Myros narrowed his eyes. And what of your weapons? Your wars? Your violent history? Tessa didn't flinch. We carry our flaws with us, but we also carry our hope. Our greatest minds, our healers, our teachers, they outnumber the war makers. We are still learning. But we are not the same species we were 100 years ago. Or even 10. A quiet voice rose from the far corner. But why now? Tessa paused. Her expression softened. Because we're ready to listen. She changed the projection. Now it showed human scientists shaking hands with alien researchers, children watching the stars through telescopes, volunteers building habitats on Mars not for conquest but for understanding. We came here not just to speak, but to learn from you, she said. To be challenged by your wisdom. We know we are not perfect, but we are curious, brave, and more than anything, we endure. The room fell quiet again. Myros stared at her, as if trying to see through her calm. You came alone, he said. Why? Tessa smiled. Because we wanted to show you who we really are. Not a fleet, not a force. Just a person, reaching out. At that moment, a soft chime sounded through the chamber. A message had arrived from the orbiting station. It showed a human-built shuttle, small, basic in design, waiting just beyond the moon's shadow. More humans were on board, ready to assist, not demand. They brought scientists, artists, translators, and environmental engineers. No soldiers. Tessa looked up, her voice quiet but firm. We brought minds, not weapons. We brought questions, not orders. We brought coffee, and a willingness to listen. Some delegates chuckled. Others smiled for the first time in hours. Myros, still unsmiling, sat down slowly. His mind swirled with doubt, but also something else. Curiosity. These creatures had come from chaos, but they did not bring chaos with them. One elder delegate who had been silent the entire time finally stood. His skin was translucent, his voice calm. Perhaps, he said, what we fear most is not the human strength, but what they might inspire in the rest of us. And with that, the council began to reconsider. Outside the chamber, Earth's moon turned slowly. On its surface, a small human station blinked with lights, and aboard the shuttle waiting in orbit, a young girl stared out a window watching the stars. Her name was Nova. She wasn't a soldier or a scientist, she was just a student, 17 years old, who had won a contest to join the diplomatic mission. She didn't know it yet, but she would be the first human to live in a city beyond Earth. The future was already arriving, and it looked a lot like her. Kieran sat at the wide glass window of the orbital learning station, watching a small shuttle drift past. Beyond it, the dark canvas of space stretched endlessly, sprinkled with stars that blinked like distant thoughts. He had been on the station for nearly a year now, studying advanced planetary engineering and cultural sciences, but no lecture or simulation had ever stirred his curiosity the way the humans did. They were different, not just in biology or technology, but in spirit. And today, he was about to meet one of them. The station's new visiting lecturer arrived, just after midday. He didn't enter with a parade of credentials or high-ranking escorts. Instead, He walked in wearing a simple shirt with rolled-up sleeves, a backpack slung over one shoulder, and a smile that seemed far too relaxed for someone stepping into a classroom filled with species from over a dozen worlds. His name was Evan. Just Evan. Evan greeted each student personally, including Kieran, who blinked in surprise when the man offered a handshake, something humans apparently considered both a greeting and a show of respect. His voice was warm, casual, but full of energy. "You don't need to memorize every equation today," he said with a grin. "But by the end of this lesson, I hope you start thinking like Earthlings." The class exchanged uncertain glances. Kieran, ever curious, raised a hand. "What exactly does that mean?" Evan shrugged. "It means knowing how to try something even if you might fail. It means doing hard things just to see if you can. It means believing there's always more to learn." Over the weeks that followed, Kieran and Evan grew close. Kieran had questions, thousands of them, and Evan answered them all with the patience of a mountain and the wit of a comedian. He told stories of Earth's strange habits, of people who climbed icy cliffs for sport, of runners who challenged deserts, of artists who painted on cave walls thousands of years ago because they wanted to leave a mark. One day, while they were walking through the station's arboretum, Kieran asked what humans feared most. "Easy," Evan replied. "Staying the same. We fear stopping. We fear boredom. We like puzzles too much to stay still." Kieran thought about that for a long time. His species had always moved carefully, following structure and logic. But humans danced in chaos and found beauty in the unknown. They built art out of pain and science out of curiosity. And now they were building friendships that had once seemed impossible. Everything changed when the station's life support system malfunctioned during a solar flare. Alarms blared. Heat levels began to rise. Power flickered. Panic spread fast. Students ran. Teachers shouted instructions. And Kieran froze, his body locked in fear. But Evan didn't run. He moved straight toward the problem. "Get to the auxiliary room," he called to Kieran, dragging a toolkit behind him. "I'll meet you there." Kieran's mind raced. He wasn't a technician. He didn't know what to do. But he remembered Evan's words. Try, even if you fail. He reached the auxiliary room and began checking systems. His hands shook. Readings flashed red. He tapped into backup diagnostics and activated cooling protocols, something he'd only practiced in simulations. Then Evan arrived, face sweaty but calm, and together they adjusted the energy circuits, rerouted airflow, and sealed the breach. It worked. The station stabilized, power returned, life support resumed. And when the emergency teams arrived, they found two unlikely figures, a nervous student and a calm human, leaning against the wall, breathing hard but laughing like they'd just won a prize. Later, as the station returned to normal, Kieran looked out that familiar window again. The stars looked the same, but something inside him had changed. He submitted his thesis 2 weeks later. It was titled, Echoes Among the Stars, the Human Influence on Interstellar Thought. It argued that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its physical endurance. It was their way of seeing the universe, as something full of questions to ask, not dangers to fear, as a place to explore, not conquer. His final paragraph read, "Humans did not come to the stars seeking to lead. They came to learn, to adapt, and to dream. They share their fears, their hopes, and their laughter with equal honesty. And in doing so, they remind us that courage isn't about being unafraid. It's about being willing." The thesis was praised, translated into dozens of languages. It became required reading in cultural studies programs across the assembly. But more than that, it inspired change. Within 5 years, humans were invited to help lead cooperative missions to unexplored systems. They opened learning centers on moons, shared art on asteroid galleries, and planted trees on planets where life had never grown before. And yes, as Evan once joked, they opened a coffee shop on a mining colony inside a comet, just to see if it would work. In time, people stopped seeing Earth as the Deathworld. They started calling it something else, the Seed Planet, because From it had come not just a species, but an idea. That no matter how dangerous the world, no matter how uncertain the sky, something new could always grow. And in every corner of space where a human had walked, a little bit of Earth, its curiosity, its courage and its laughter echoed on.